Hello, thank you for having us. So we're just here to talk about our Green Team project. So if we could just have the next slide, Rachel. Thank you. So we work in a small outpatient department, and as Rachel said, we just accept referrals from the trauma and orthopaedic and plastic consultants, and also from the virtual fracture clinic. So most of the post-operative patients that we need to see require an appointment quite quickly, so between 2 and 5 days after their operation, sometimes sooner. And if they're not seen that quickly, it can lead to a significant amount of complications. So there could be lots of swelling or infections, things like that. So it's really important that we see them quickly after they've had their operation. Next slide, please.
So for our project, we looked at the plastic surgery patients that were booked on the trauma list. So I'll just talk you through the pathway of how these patients get to us. So basically, the patient attends A&E, and then A&E refer to plastics trauma clinic. The patient then attends the trauma clinic for plastics, and the registrars will assess them, and then if they deem they require, they'll list them for surgery. The patient will then go home and they will come back for surgery. The surgery is obviously then completed, and the plastics registrar will complete an online ICE referral after the surgery to hand therapy. They will also scan and send a copy of the operation note to us, so we have that detail. And then in hand therapy, we receive that referral and we triage kind of once a day all our referrals. And then we find them appropriate appointments, and we hold an appointment for the post-operative patients in our diary. We then give the referrals physically to the admin team, and we ask them to make contact with these patients. And the admin team do this via the telephone, because obviously we need to get these patients seen within that 2 to 5 days. And normally, often this is already on day 1, because they were normally operated on the day before. So the admin team have to really try and make quick contact with that patient. They then obviously inform them of their appointment. And if the admin team are struggling to get hold of them, they would then kind of come back to us. And sometimes then we'd have to either send them an appointment via the post, or trying to go back via the GP to find an alternative contact number, which obviously if we're using the post takes time. The hospital post goes second class, so there's no way that those patients will be seen within that 2 to 5 day post op appointment. So this was like the original process that these patients followed, and we looked at streamlining that process.
Yeah, so the new process initially stayed the same. So the first bit of it, the patient attends the trauma clinic in integrated surgery, and they're listed for surgery. And then this is where the change came in. So rather than the patient just being sent home, they were instead sent to hand therapy. So they were asked just to wait in the waiting room, and then we would ad hoc see them as quickly as we could. We would give them post-op information, some advice. We would book them the post-op appointment. So they would have, they would know where the hand therapy department was. They would have a little bit of understanding about what would be expected post-operatively. We could give them a bit of advice on keeping their hand elevated, on what signs to look out for in terms of an infection. And they would leave the department having asked any questions that they might have, and having an understanding of what would happen in that first appointment in terms of doing exercises, checking the wound, making splints. So they're left with quite a lot of information and knowing where the department is, because we're sort of right out the way. And then the plastic registrars completed the ICE referral after surgery, and we would get a copy of the op note, and then the patient attended the hand therapy appointment, so that we had the correct information, because obviously when they're doing trauma surgery, they might think they're going in to do one particular type of surgery, but actually when they open up the hand and investigate, they might do something different. So it was important for us still to receive the op note and ICE referral with the what actually happened in the surgery as opposed to what they thought they were going to do. Next slide, please.
So for the project, we took like a sample of 2 months, so a month of patients before this process change and then a month of patients after this process change, and we compared them, and they were 10 patients from each of those samples. And just this process change, we were able to prove that there was a reduction in the number of hand therapy appointments by kind of just over 43%, which is obviously quite a significant time saving to us in hand therapy. But we also looked at the wider team as well. So we looked at consultant appointments and dressings appointments as well. And this change was able to reduce that by 54.5% as well. So it kind of had that wider impact on the bigger team also. The average time that their care was under hand therapy also reduced by 21%, which overall makes quite a significant difference to our caseload and how we manage that. What we think was the reduction was just because there was a reduction in delay to care in hand therapy, and therefore a reduction in complications, which required additional appointments for the management of those. The other thing we noticed was that our DNA rates in hand therapy reduced quite significantly. This is something as an outpatient department we're always kind of trying to manage, and we've tried lots of different approaches to this, which generally make a little bit of a difference, but actually this is probably one of the most significant things. So for this patient group, it reduced from 21% to 10%, which is obviously quite a good reduction. And then, as I was saying, the breach to target time, so that 2 to 5 days post-op, we were initially breaching that at 43%, and then with this process change, it's brought it down to 10%. So it obviously had quite a good impact generally overall. The next slide, please.
So we did the friends and family feedback. We looked at, we had a look at the pre-change. So 92% of patients rated our services very good and 8% as good. And then post-change, it went up to 97.5% very good and 2.5% good. We got lots of quotes, which you can see on this slide. So it was quite important for the patients to know that we were looking at environmental considerations, but lots of them wanted to make sure that it wasn't also going to impact the level of care that they were receiving in the department. We had some good feedback from the consultants, so they were really on board with what we were doing, and it was important to have them and the registrars on board to actually make the process work. The hand therapist, although it was sometimes a bit stressful when the patients just turned up in the department and we were just expected to find the time to see them, the benefits of actually doing that were so great that, you know, it didn't seem like it was actually too difficult to do, and it never took too long to actually speak to the patients when we needed to. And admin found it really helpful because obviously we were able to give the patients their appointment and information, so admin weren't having to ring the patients, chase the patients, and sometimes convince the patients to come in if they weren't sure about whether or not they needed to come in for hand therapy. Admin were having to try and, you know, convince them that they did actually need to come in for this appointment. So there was lots of really positive feedback from everyone that was involved in the project. Next slide, please.
So we looked at the kind of environmental and financial projections across the year. So we scaled up our project, and as you can see, it's predicted to save the trust 22,651 kilograms of CO2 emissions, which is equivalent of quite a long car journey, 66,896, and kind of in pounds, that 88,829 pounds, which is a significant saving for our trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you.